Leeds United are set to play against Watford this weekend in a match that could be absolutely huge for the Whites' promotion push. Getting up and running at home would be absolutely perfect. We've not won there yet this season. Let's get going. I'm going to start out with a quick injury update as to what's affecting the squad, who's there, who isn't, and what it means for the lineup. First up, Willie Gnonto is out. He's done something to one of the ligaments on the outside of his ankle. That's far from ideal because he was one of our more creative players in the earlier parts of the season. Admittedly, he's not been as on the boil as we might like, but he's a good player, undeniably, and he can change a game. Similar to Crescencio Somerville, I expect to see Dan James starting instead. We'll see what happens. In addition to that, we are also missing Joe Rodon. This is less of an injury and more of a red card suspension. Unfortunately, you can't appeal second yellow cards. The first one was definitely not a yellow card in the match against Hull City, but it is what it is. You lose players from time to time for reasons out of your own control. I guess it gives Rodon a bit of a rest. That can't be too bad. However, there is some more positive news. Stuart Dallas has returned to fitness and is fit enough to train at the moment. Now, just going to caveat that with the fact that Stuart Dallas isn't yet ready to play. According to Daniel Farke, typical rules and wisdom say that the amount of time that a player is injured for is roughly the amount of time they need to be recovering for and training to get up to fitness and get up to standard. Hopefully that's not the case with Stuart Dallas, because that would be another year and a half out. But Farke said that he could be a few weeks, maybe a month, something like that. So you wouldn't expect to see him this weekend. However, maybe Patrick Bamford, because he should be fit enough for the bench by now, according to what Farke said before Hull. He just needed a few days in training to get up to the pace. I don't think Bamford was mentioned in this press conference. Correct me in the comments below if I was wrong. That's completely fine. Also, subscribe and like the video. It's massively appreciated. But yeah. He also mentioned that Ethan Ampadu seems to be okay after his knock against not Hull City, match before that, Millwall. It was more of a dead leg than anything. It was just a matter of whether or not it felt okay before Hull. It does. Ampadu has played every single minute of the season so far for us, making him an essential part of that unit. I can see him being picked any single time he is fit under Daniel Farke. Moving on to how Watford will play. It's all good, us having players. It comes down to how the other team play as well in order to get a result. And first up, I think Valerian Ismail, who is the guy that runs Watford at the moment, his tactics at Burnley were something interesting to me. He got that side into the playoffs, which was absolutely incredible. But the way he did it was curious to me. He didn't quite play kick and rush football, but it was a game of play a long ball out, get several players chasing it, but don't try and win the first ball, win the second ball or the third ball. Whenever the ball came loose, pick it up and counter. And that is something that I think we'll need to keep an eye out for. That is what I like to call a bit of a tendency for chaos ball. Against highly structured teams, if you're able to make things a little bit bonkers, a little bit chaotic, you have a much better chance of securing the win, and that is what I imagine Watford doing. Like a few years back against Manchester City, when we won 2-1 because we lost Liam Cooper, we didn't quite turn it into chaos ball. We played nice defensive stuff, but when we attacked, it was with players you wouldn't quite expect. The goal that won us the game came for Stuart Dallas from Yanni Alioski, and that is a pair that you wouldn't quite expect. It's a matter of seeing the chaos coming and dealing with it in an effective way, and hopefully we'll be okay. In his press conference, Farke also noted that they like to play fairly deep and they attack fairly wide, which is something that we should be okay with dealing with. Assuming Luke Ayling is fit, I think he was taken off because he was a little bit tired against Hull earlier in the week. Taking that into account, we can expect to see Ayling playing there. We might expect to see Sam Byron playing there because apparently he didn't play against Hull because he doesn't feel ready for 3 matches a week. That's completely fine. If he knows his limits, that's brilliant. That means he's not going to get injured. Those two at fullback, I feel fairly comfortable with dealing with the attacking wide thing, especially with Somerville, who is okay enough at tracking back, and Dan James, who has played as a wing back under the likes of Jesse Marsh. I think we'll be completely okay dealing with that deep and wide method that we'll likely use. It's just about dealing with it in our own way and having the right response for Leeds United. The first thing I noted was the fact that we are really good on the counter and in transition. It's not necessarily just we've won the ball, go. It's we've got the ball in defence, they're pressing. If you can get them in the moment between defence and midfield when they're transitioning from a press to a low block, you're fine. If it's a team that sits completely in a low block, it's impossible to hit transitionally. But this is a side that when they attack will need to get goals and will commit to it and do their best. If we're able to score a fairly early goal, they will chase the game as much as they can because they need to, and we'll have a lot more gaps to play into. I feel like hitting them on the counter early is a good way of going, and breaking down the opponent is also very good. Breaking down the opponent is something specifically that Daniel Farke brought up in his press conference as well. He said that a lot of sides will likely sit back against Leeds United this season. It's completely understandable. Leeds are one of the better in-possession sides in the Premier League, and whenever someone comes to Elland Road, you're also facing a very not Premier League Championship, sorry. Whenever you come to Elland Road, you're facing a very angry and angsty crowd that really wants to get on an away team's back. So you might as well just sit in. You might as well deal with it. You're not going to make as many mistakes. He also emphasised that the difference between the top teams and good teams is the ability to break down a low block. So I feel like that's something that's been working on the passing through other teams, getting Reter, Pirro, Somerville, probably Jadon Anthony or Dan James, considering the injuries. Getting them better at that one-touch stuff, playing through a backline and penetrating a defence in a way that leads to chances. And on that note, we really need to take those chances. It was a massive issue that we faced against Sheffield Wednesday when Jorginho Rutter couldn't put the ball over their goalkeeper to finish a chance. It was a big issue against Hull City when, again, Rutter one-on-one against the keeper. The keeper did absolutely brilliantly. I'm not taking anything away from Rutter's effort, but sometimes you're not going to get that many chances in the Championship. They are going to sit deep. They are not going to give you much, and when you get a chance, you need to take it. That's why ideally we have Joel Pirro on the end of it. He scored 3 goals in 4 matches. It's spectacular what he's done for Leeds so far, but he needs to be in the right places to do that. The more we've been working towards not only breaking through them, but creating the chance and finishing the chance, I think we'll be okay. There's also been discussion about the role of Luke Ayling. Admittedly, people have said that he's falling off a little bit this season. He's losing a little bit of pace and his positioning's gone a little bit funky, but I can see him playing partially because Daniel Farke spoke quite a lot about how he's useful on and off the pitch. He's a very motivational figure, apparently, in the dressing room who gets everyone pumped up for a match. And I can't see taking him out right now being a very good idea, considering he's such a fundamental part of that matchday preparation. Ultimately, what do I think will happen in the Leeds United versus Watford match? It's really hard to say. I'm going to have a very, very quick look at the Championship table at the moment because it's sort of important. Watford are currently 14th in the league, which sort of average. They're not a fantastic side. They're not a bad side. We're currently 9th, but our performances have arguably put us in a better place than that We're a better side than that. If we're able to score early, I can see it being a fairly big score. I can see us doing really well. If we're not, then I can see them continuing to try and get that little bit of chaos and maybe nicking it 1-0. As a straight guess, I'm going to say 2-0 Leeds United, and it's very optimistic. Put your guesses in the comments below, like the video and subscribe. I will see you later.